Hi folks, Colin here. Just going to bring my little buddy into view. Now, using a dog training collar on dog aggression, if your dog is aggressive, there's 3 different types of aggression. There's dog on dog aggression, dog on human, and dog on animal aggression. Probably the most one that we hear about is dog on human and dog on dog. A couple of rules of thumb: if your dog is in an aggressive situation with another dog, do not put your hands in there to try and stop things happening, because you might even find that it's your dog that turns around and bites you. So keep your hands away from the pointy end of the dog and the sharp end. And really, basically, if you've got a lead on a dog, one thing I found with my dog, 2 dogs will square off. Hang on. I'll have my trusty little friend from Australian Customs there. Thanks, guys, for our little gift. That was fantastic. 2 dogs square off, and you've got a lead involved, and what they'll do is they'll turn, twist the leads up, and then if you pull on the lead, you're actually pulling, usually a little dog, into the other dog when you pull on the lead. So just be very careful of that. What I got into the habit of doing, if my dog came up against a dog that was a bit strange and the dog started to get a little bit antsy, I would be ready to throw the lead on the ground so that they could actually sort things out themselves and then keep well enough away. Of course, we don't want our dogs to get in that situation, so using a remote dog training collar is actually prevention. You might find that there are people that may not like to use remote training collars, but if you are preventing your dogs from getting into an aggressive situation, then you're way in front of the 8 ball. What happens if your dog gets in an aggressive situation? You might end up with one of these. If your dog is declared dangerous, that is a whole big nightmare you do not want to get involved in. So obviously, if you have a dog that's showing tendencies of being aggressive towards other dogs, then be very careful when you're going down the park. All it takes, it doesn't matter if your dog's off lead or your dog is on lead and another dog comes up and there is a fight, your dog could very easily be declared dangerous, because the shires are actually responsible now. If there's a dog attack and they don't declare a dog dangerous and make the dog wear dangerous dog collar, live in a cage, wear a muzzle and have a sign outside the property, they can be liable if anything goes wrong and they haven't taken action, which has happened before. So that's why rangers and shires are coming down very heavily on any sort of dog incident. Declare the dog dangerous, end of story. Let's move on, and then it's a real fight to try and get a dangerous dog declaration removed, so just be aware. This is where a good remote training collar can actually help. We've got several here. I'll read a few out. Mini Educator, very good quality remote. Sport Dog, very durable remotes. Very accurate, fast, correcting, big leash, excellent remote trainer for very fine tuning, training. And also some more domestic models. Now, all of these units come with what's called a C-tick. The ACMA we have tested these units. They have passed the test. If you don't have a C-tick on your remote, you can get into a lot of trouble. Now, let's have a chat about aggressive dogs. All right, now, dog aggression is a sliding scale. You can have very aggressive dog at this end or very mild aggression. It's still dog aggression. And where your dog is on this scale will depend on the situation they're in. And things could escalate very, very quickly. So if your dog has got a trigger point where he doesn't like other dogs and he gets into a situation, that could raise very, very quickly. So be aware that you could be faced with these situations in a very slight instance. If you are in a situation where your dog is aggressive, then it's basically socialization that will help you train the habit out of the dog. Now, if you go to our website, we have a video where a lady came in and sat down and had a chat. She was actually coming back in to get a remote dog training collar with a second collar. So she was adding an extra collar to her remote trainer to turn it into a 2-dog system. 4 or 5 months before that, she had come in to purchase a remote training collar because her German Shepherd was so aggressive that it would pull her off her feet. She was an elderly lady. Pull her off her feet, and then she'd be faced with a situation where the dog would be turning around and biting her hand to make her let go of the leash so it could go and attack another dog. What happened then is she came in and talked to us about a training collar. We hired one out to her. She upgraded later on to a better, more durable, longer distance, faster reacting model. And 4 months later, she walks back into the shop and says, I want to turn it into a 2-dog system because we're so happy with the result that our dog is now off lead. So if you can imagine you take an aggressive dog that wants to race across a park and attack another dog, and within 2 to 3 months you have that dog off lead, ignoring every other dog in the park, that's a pretty good result. Now, what she did then is she went down to the pound and she rescued another dog, turned her system into a 2-dog system, and she had both dogs off lead in the park, ignoring everything else. Now, the key is, number one, make sure that you are using the remote correctly. So when you're training a dog, you would obviously have the security of having the dog on a long lead, and then if they're looking sideways at another dog, you're using the low-level stim in the collar to distract and redirect them and make them ignore what's going on. You can do that quite easily by using the adjustable levels in the remote. All of our remotes have adjustable levels, and you can find that temperament level where, again, like a bark collar, the dog's temperament is along this line, and if you're coming in with low-level distractionary stim along this sort of area, you're just giving the dog enough attention that he distracts, and then you can stop. Once he's distracted, you can stop, and he gets the idea that if I'm paying attention to something else other than my handler or my trainer, then there's this strange sensation happening, and I need to stop what I'm doing, and every time I focus back on the handler, I get rewarded. Now, reward doesn't have to be food. It can just be a tone of voice or a pleasant experience, a pat on the head, or a lot of dog handlers will use a toy. You'll see a lot of dog trainers, when they have a dog and they do the right thing, they get their play with their favourite toy that they've grown up with for like 2 minutes, and then it's like, okay, go and do the right thing, we'll give you the toy back. That's the sort of situation you can be in. The next one is if your dog actually gets turned on instantly, is about to run away, you can use a remote to stop them. And obviously, if your dog's temperament jumps up to here very quickly, you're going to have to raise the remote up very quickly, and so you need something that's fairly fast reacting and fairly quick as well. The other rule of thumb is you're using a remote on an aggressive dog, but not when the dog is in an aggressive situation. What you have to remember is if a dog is in an aggressive situation and you do some sort of negative thing, you might actually be putting petrol on the fire. So when I read in the owner's manuals that are included in all of these products and they say do not use the collar on aggressive dogs, to me it's kind of true, but it's kind of not true. If you have an aggressive dog and you have the dog under control with a remote trainer, you don't let him get into a situation where you don't know the dog that he's going up to, or you think there might be a problem, you can get the dog to come back to you before you get to that point where you've got that aggressive situation happening. Of course, if you do have a dog, getting back to what I said before, that is in an aggressive act with another dog, don't stick your hands at the sharp end and end up getting bitten, quite often by your own dog. Make sure you're staying well enough away. I'm not going to go into techniques about how to separate dogs that are in an actual fight, because there's lots of theories about them. My theory is don't put yourself in danger. First thing of any sort of rescue training that I've done with swimming, etc., is make sure it's safe for you before you get in, because you could become the problem or you could become the victim if you get yourself into danger. So the idea behind a remote trainer with regards to aggressive dogs is not using it on a dog when he's in an aggressive situation. It's actually stopping the dog from getting into that situation. If you're in the park and you know your dog has a tendency to get aggressive towards other dogs, keep them away. Don't cause any problems. If another dog comes up to you, you can actually tell the owner, please keep your dog away from my dog, and then it's debatable as to whose fault it would be if something happened. So look, I'm going to leave it there. It is a situation where if you do have an aggressive dog, you might need to have some advice. You might need to get a remote training collar and then seek the advice of a professional dog trainer. But we have had great success in the park in taking dogs that are very aggressive, getting them to ignore the sort of triggers that used to set them off, and then be distracted in the park so that they're not focusing on what they used to focus on. You're distracting them and getting them to focus back on you and what you want them to do. All right, now, lastly, thanks very much for that, but lastly, big shout out to our friend that came in. I can't remember his name, but this beautiful dog on this very table, really lovely. He went down the park, he had a remote training collar, didn't have his dog off lead, had his dog on the lead. Another dog came up to his dog, and then out of the blue, bang, it's on, and his dog ends up with stitches on his face. So if you have a dog down the park, please keep control of it. if you can't trust your dog 110% off lead, that you're going to be able to say, come, and your dog comes back immediately, don't have your dog off the lead. It's your responsibility to have your dog under control at all times. And it just might be one of these remote training collars that's fast enough and flexible enough to teach your dog that he must return, or be that emergency backup if you do have him off the lead and something strange pops up, you can get him to come back. Okay, folks, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. And that's it from TDL TV for today. Cheers for now.